I decided that it was time for me to grab the bull by the horns and fix me, because I was never able to get the satisfaction, the forgiveness, the wholeness until I did some deep inside work on myself. And Initiative One's leadership transformation was a huge part of that.
Welcome to the InitiativeOne Leadership Podcast, where we help leaders maximize their impact and transform their lives. I'm your host, Nick Nybert, as well as the VP of Strategic Partnership for InitiativeOne. And I want to welcome you to the show. And we have our guest, Mike Jeanquart, coming with us here today. And super excited to have him on. And before I go ahead and drill him with some questions, I'm going to give you a little bit of background with Mike here. And I'm super excited to hear about your story, about your journey, and all the great things that you're doing personally for your family, your community. It's going to be a great show. So Mike is a full-time realtor. He is a real estate investor. Mike's going to be sharing with us his journey over the last, we'll say 5 or 10 years to where he is today. I've gotten to know Mike fairly well over the last several months as he's been attending some of our leadership think tanks here at InitiativeOne. And it's just been really good getting to know Mike before he plugged into the InitiativeOne leadership process to where he is today here in 2023. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Nick.
It's awesome having you on here.
It is awesome to be here.
Yes. So I remember it was probably about 5 or 6 months ago that I had just probably met you for the first time, and you come to the different different InitiativeOne think tanks, and I could just tell that you were a learner, like you like to listen to audiobooks and read different books, and you're just big into leadership and growth and maximizing how you can show up better, not just for yourself personally, but for your family and for what you do. So let's talk a little bit about your background. So you were originally, when you got into the workforce, you were a police officer for a little bit, and then there's been quite a few different things in the last 6, 7, 8 years. So share with us a little bit of your background.
First off, I'm married, have 4 kids. They are range in age from 10 to 16. So
Okay.
Super busy with sports and life and all that kind of stuff. I started out in the world as a police officer.
Okay.
That was my first job. Just about 10 years on patrol with Green Bay Police, and in 2017, I left that field. It wasn't by choice, but now that when I look back and everything that I've been through, I realize that it was for a reason.
Okay.
So after law enforcement, I went into construction, and then through construction, I was able to connect with a local real estate brokerage, and by the end of that half-hour conversation, I was convinced to take the real estate exam. So I took the real estate exam, and then from there, it just kind of snowballed. Saw the opportunities as far as real estate investing, and I've gone basically full bore into real estate and investments.
So how long have you been involved in when did you get your license?
I got licensed in 2019.
2019. So, and you had mentioned that you had met Ben Bartolozzi,
Correct.
A broker here in the Green Bay area. So you met him, and then you got your license shortly after. What happened there? That's really interesting.
So I called him about a property that he had listed.
Okay.
And then I kind of decided that I wasn't even going to look at it because it didn't really fit my criteria for a property that I was looking for, because it needed a lot of work.
Okay.
So we transitioned from that conversation into, have you ever thought about a career in real estate? And I always have thought about a career in real estate. I just never actually acted on it. So, Ben grew up, his dad was a home builder. He grew up building homes, and he knew my background of construction. He said, this is something you should really get into because you know about homes. You sound like you're willing to help people, and it sounds like you like to learn. So I think this would be great for you. And I thought, well, what better chance than to do that? It was basically December, so I took the online course. I think I got licensed at the end of February.
Okay.
And then just kept going from there.
So was this property you were just looking to purchase or rehab or?
Yeah, I was looking to purchase it and rehab it and
Okay.
then sell it was my intention.
And I remember that was like one of our earlier conversations as you were talking about like when we had originally met, that you were in real estate, but then you had all this experience and knowledge with building and contracting. And any of the listeners on here, don't give me anything more than a light bulb. Honestly, my wife knows this. I am not handy at all. So anyone that knows, like you look at a building and you can see the structure and wow, like, okay, that's not good. Like I wouldn't see that. Like I just wouldn't, but you can see it with your eyes because did you grow, like, what is your background with construction? Cause it sounds like this is just something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
It's like building and.
So
Tell us about that.
my dad was a carpenter for over 40 years. I guess he still is. He's retired, but that doesn't
Okay.
mean he actually retires. So I grew up projects all the time,
Okay.
building stuff, helping him put windows and doors in, helping him, at my aunts and uncles' houses when they needed work. We built a spec house and a duplex while I was in high school. So I was always around that stuff, and I was just always, the problem solving and figuring things out it came second nature to me because I was always immersed in it.
Okay. How valuable does that make you in real estate? Because like it's one thing to be able to, buy and sell homes and help the seller and the buyer, but when you're walking through a home, like you're seeing what the homeowner, potentially that first time home buyer, like they're not sure what to look for.
Right.
And you can walk through and say, hey, like this house is solid. And you can give them that confidence where like I'm guessing the majority of realtors don't really have that background.
Correct.
They're really like, they're licensed, they're knowledgeable.
And most of them are really good and familiar with the real estate process and everything like that, all the paperwork, contracts,
Right.
negotiations, all that. But they don't have that third dimension of being able to see a home from a contractor perspective.
Correct. So you're almost like a realtor slash, because you always have to get an inspection before the house. Like
I still encourage inspections because I'm not a licensed inspector.
So you're still, but like you have that level of knowledge where you can go through a house, like the key areas that are going to be the biggest investment if there has to be some kind of modification.
Yeah.
They're going to know that adds so much credibility to what you do as a realtor.
It definitely does. And it's almost a double-edged sword because I'm a super honest person. So when I see something, I'm like, just the other night I showed a house and I'm like, well, they finished the basement here, but it honestly kind of looks like a couple buddies got together on the weekend and did it. And, it doesn't look like the best job, but it's extra space in the basement and it's it is what it is. It's usable. Exactly. And that's exactly what I said. It's usable space, but just, realize that this probably wasn't done by a professional.
Right.
And, as long as you go into it knowing that, then it's not a big deal. It's when you kind of get duped into thinking that you're getting something great and then it turns out to not be great.
Right. You don't start to see the cracks after about a year or two after you've been in a house, right?
Yeah.
I can speak for that because I'm like, whoa, like, how did I not see that when I bought this house? You're big into learning.
I am.
You love listening to audiobooks, reading books. You're always posting stuff about inspiring others. Where did that start?
So back in 2015, I went through some pretty big life changes. I got divorced. And then what I used to say all this stuff happened to me. And then as I made that transition into realizing that it actually happened for me. So I used to carry a lot of anger and a lot of guilt and a lot of self-doubt because of the experiences in my life. And now what I liken it to is a fishbowl.
Okay.
Like they say a fish will only grow as big as its environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are situations in my past that like it was this big hand grabbed me out of this fishbowl and put me into this other one, except the other one was way bigger.
Okay.
So now I could grow, and I looked at that as an opportunity to learn through audible self-help books, through podcasts, and then leadership transformation. All this stuff taught me that the more information that you take in, the better person you can be. So by being transplanted out of these smaller bowls into these bigger fish bowls, I'm able to grow. But that's a painful process. I mean, that's not something that comes with ease.
It is. You only grow through pain, and nobody likes going through pain. but that's like a sign that you are
Yeah.
that you're growing, correct?
Absolutely.
Were
I tell my kids all the time when, when they're hurt or something, I just say the fact that you're feeling pain right now means you're healing. That pain is the hurt is the
Right.
healing. If you didn't hurt right now, whatever you're going through wouldn't mean anything because it's not meaningful enough to cause the pain. So the fact that whether it's a broken arm or an emotional, somebody died, something like that, that pain is actually your body healing, your mind healing.
Right.
And you can't actually heal without that.
Right. Were you always a reader? Like, have you always been a learner, or did that just change a few years ago?
I've always been a learner, not a reader. That's why I use Audible.
Okay.
But it did accelerate as I went through stuff in my life where I decided that it was time for me to grab the bull by the horns and fix me, because I was never able to get the satisfaction, the forgiveness, the wholeness until I did some deep inside work on myself. And InitiativeOne's leadership transformation was a huge part of that. I felt when we developed our two-word
purpose
statement, I was really reluctant because I felt incredibly selfish.
Okay.
And I talked to Fred and Tracy and Regina, and I think I even probably talked to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, okay, I feel like this is it, but it's all about me. And then after talking with them, I realized that that's actually exactly what needed to happen in order for me to be able to get to that next level.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's been awesome just talking with Dr. Fred and Tracy and Regina. With you here, I can see just over the last 6 months, there's like it's not a breath of fresh air, but I can see you are more on purpose for where you're going. Mm-hmm. Like here in this year, 2023, like, hey, these are things I want to accomplish. And it's very inspiring to others. It really is. Even though, like, if you're doing things, whether it's working out or listening to an audiobook, that can be an individual process, and no one might be like right next to you. But when you share something from what you learned, or you post something online, people are watching and they're listening and they're getting inspired. They're
Right.
getting inspired by that. The last handful of months, you've done this like physical transformation with nutrition and working out. So tell us a little bit about that.
So beginning of October, I started out on, I joined up with First Form. It's a nutrition company. They were doing an 8-week challenge. Mm-hmm. So I was turning 40 in November, and I always kind of had this feeling. I would look in the mirror, but my eyes wouldn't like exactly meet. And when they did, I just had this kind of empty feeling inside because I knew I could always do more. Mm-hmm. So I just decided one day, this is it. I'm going to get in this challenge and I'm going to change my life. And that's what happened. I went from 195 pounds on October 5th to 166 pounds on December 4th. So through that, I tracked everything I ate. I worked out religiously. I implemented a morning routine that includes meditation and visualization. And I started designing a life that is on purpose. So I always say, if you don't design your life, you'll live a life by default. And what I like in default too is, I think you actually told me this, is it's like being on cruise control. You get on the highway, you hit the cruise control, and then you kind of zone out, and all of a sudden you get to your destination and you don't even remember the last 10 miles. Well, that's our subconscious. So if we have, let's say the studies have shown you have like 70,000 thoughts in a day. Mm-hmm. 90% of those thoughts are the same as they were the day before. So if 90% of your thoughts are the same thoughts that you had the day before, then that means today and tomorrow, all these days are going to be the same. So if you live in a world of drama, anxiety, worry, lack, now that feeling has become so familiar to you that you don't even have to make a conscious choice anymore. It's like when your kids first learn to eat and they're using the fork like this, and they hit it their nose, and then they hit their cheek, and then all of a sudden after how many tries they get it in their mouth, right?
Right.
Well, how long does that last? 6 months, and they're just shoveling it in. They don't have to think about putting the fork in their mouth anymore.
Right.
And that's what happens with our thoughts. So if you make a conscious decision to change this, the great news is that once the life by design happens, then that's your default. If you get away from that, that's your familiarity. So when your mind doesn't like to be unfamiliar. Like when things aren't jiving, then that's when the red flags go up, because we don't have a lot of energy to be making these decisions. So we rely on our subconscious to do what we did yesterday. Mm-hmm. So that's why one of the big things that I always say is, if you want your tomorrow to be different, you have to do something different today. And just doing something different today, thinking about it, making that choice, and being conscious about what you're thinking and what your thoughts are, that's a win. And when you get a win, you move to the next day. And now you have a blueprint for what happened yesterday. Now, instead of being what happened 2 days ago as your default, lack, worry, anxiety, whatever your personality is at that point, now you have something else to draw from. Your subconscious has a blueprint of what happened yesterday that was different from that. And now when you do that for a week and a month and then 2 months, all of a sudden your life turns from something that just happens to exactly what you want it to be, because you're guiding your thoughts in that direction.
I'm Fred Johnson. I'm the founder and the CEO here at InitiativeOne. We've just ended another think tank that was attended by close to 1,000 people from across the country. And what a great time that we had. I'm sharing that because in our next think tank next month, we want you to be a part of that. We want you to experience the energy, the wisdom that our folks are sharing with each other, and the growth that is taking place in their own lives. We want you to participate in that as well. Next month, one of my most special subjects we're going to be talking about, near and dear to my heart, it's called the universal law of attraction. And that as you're growing, you will begin to attract people to you who are not only growing, they have grown beyond you and they want you to come with them. We're going to learn about how that happens in our lives, how to be a catalyst for the law of attraction for others, and how that can begin to unleash your impact and your potential as a leader. So join us next month as we talk about leadership and the universal law of attraction and how that can change the destiny of your entire leadership journey. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
I think the word you're thinking about is transformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, right? Like you're literally transforming whether it's your body or your mind or your thoughts, you're showing up different.
Right.
You're no longer sleepwalking.
Right.
Because when you look around and you see people live their life, like most people, they're really just sleepwalking. Mm-hmm. They're not intentional. They're not on purpose. But I don't think it's because they don't want to be.
Right. They don't realize that.
It's just familiar.
Right.
It's not. You've heard people talk about the comfort zone. Like I don't like to use that word. I like to use the word familiar. Like they're just familiar with it because it's not comfortable. They're just familiar with it. So you need to get out of that unfamiliar zone to actually make a change.
Mm-hmm. Well, they say the comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. It's like the comfort zone is your dream graveyard.
Yeah.
Because when you're in your comfort zone, you don't take chances. You don't think more is possible. It's just you're in a box. You got to get out of that.
That's powerful. The comfort zone. Say that one more time.
Your comfort zone is where your dreams go to die.
Your comfort zone is where your dreams go to die.
Yep.
Yikes. That's a 2x6 across the head. There, look at that construction term. I guess I do know something about construction. Okay. A handful of months ago, you registered for the leadership transformation process.
I did.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What inspired you to say, hey, I want to go on a journey?
So for me, it was selfish. I was living a life where I let my past control my emotions. I had this emotional attachment to a story that I told myself because I went through this. And what I realized through the leadership transformation is that by allowing those emotions to dictate my story to dictate my emotions. Now I was being a victim of those emotions, and it was serving nobody. The only purpose it was serving was, it, like you said, it was familiar. It was me being able to say, okay, well, this really sucks, but at the same time, it's familiar, so it almost is reassuring. When you tell yourself this story, and the funny thing about us as humans in general is when we tell ourselves a story, we usually embellish it. You know, whether
we have to
one
sell
side
it to
or the
someone.
other. That's right.
We're going to sell it to ourselves,
Exactly.
correct?
So once you take and you transform those experiences to being, like I said, something happened to you, to saying that something happened for you, and when you can look back at something that caused you an immense amount of pain and struggle, and you can look at it as being one of the best things that's ever happened to you, as a gift,
Like
because
a gift.
yeah, then that empowers you to detach from those negative emotions, and actually it becomes a positive event in your life. And it's just like a weight is lifted off your shoulders at that point. You know, I mean, I think they call that forgiveness.
So the reason that you decided to go on the journey, you said number one, it was selfish, but two, like you needed to make a change.
Right. And I knew through the research and the books that I've read, all that kind of stuff, that the only way for me to get to the next level in business and leadership as a father, as a husband, is for me to conquer myself.
Which are some of the first models that are taught in the leadership transformation process. And for any of the listeners here or the viewers, leadership transformation is InitiativeOne's signature process. So anyone that wants to take a deeper dive into themselves as a person or as a leader, they go through this process with us. We call it a process because it's not a class. It's not a workshop. It's not a keynote. It's a process. There's
experience.
It's an experience. So people have gone through this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and they're still in a process. As we're talking to Mike here, you started this just a handful of months ago. You're still in process.
Absolutely.
You just went through the deep dive, that first phase, like those 9 weekly sessions, and that's where that slow soak, that's where that personal transformation comes. So what are one or two things that you took away from that phase one, that first part of leadership transformation?
Like I said before, the biggest one for me was the reaffirming the fact that I needed to work on myself before I could be a leader, an effective leader at the level that I would like to be. I needed to be able to, first of all, lead by example, which is huge as a father and a husband.
Yes.
And just a community member in general. If you're not leading by example, you're not leading. I mean, people aren't going to follow you if you're not doing what you say that everyone else should be doing. So,
yeah.
I mean, part of that, I mean, I look at it as, I mean, everyone has a responsibility financially through their, faith, their family, their physical fitness. All that kind of rolls into this ball of what I refer to as personal excellence.
Okay.
So, and that's my 2-word purpose.
What is your 2-word purpose?
Personal excellence.
Personal excellence. I like that. And what's really nice about the 2-word purpose is it's okay that it's selfish, and you can use that to impact people that you're connected to.
Absolutely.
Like your kids, for example. Like if that's your 2-word purpose, you can't make that be their 2-word purpose, but you can be the best example of it. So then they observe your example with that.
Absolutely.
So it's not just,
that's the idea.
It is selfish. I get it, but the better that you can show up as your best self, the more positive impact you'll make on others.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If anyone would be looking at going on a journey, say the leadership transformation process, like what would you say to someone that's thinking about that?
I would tell them that the reason they're thinking about it is because they already know they should be doing it. I mean, once you come to that realization that you could be better, if you don't take the steps to get there, I mean, nobody's suffering but you.
Mm-hmm.
So why not take that leap? If you're already thinking about it, then that's a clue.
That's a clue that they should take the step.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're saying don't fight it.
Don't fight it.
Don't fight it. I think Dr. Fred, I'm not sure if he uses the same words that I'm going to be using here, but if someone's looking for different results, it starts with new information. That new information leads to new behaviors, and those behaviors give you a different life.
Right.
And that, in essence, really is what leadership transformation really is it starts with information that you can start to identify for yourself. Okay, you know what, it is about me. I need to start pointing at myself and saying, all right, I'm responsible, and I can change this.
Mm-hmm.
So, great. Thank you for sharing with us today, Mike. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks
It's
for
great to
having
have
me.
you on here. And if this is the first time that you're listening to the show or watching the show, thank you for plugging in and joining us in this conversation with Mike. If this is the first time that you've been listening to the show and you love this episode and you found value, go ahead and share it with someone that you know. You never know what one short podcast episode can do for someone else. So if you know someone that, like, wow, this would really help that person, go ahead and share it. It's super easy to do. If you have not yet given us a rating or a review, InitiativeOne, we want to impact more and more people month after month, year after year. And the best way that we can do that is if you love this show and you've not given us a rating or review, please give us a rating. Please give us a review. And every month, we just did this just a short while ago, is every month we host a leadership event. It's called the Think Tank. And what we do is we cover different topics that leaders are experiencing, whether it's owning a business or running a company or working for a company or even being a police officer. We host these each and every month, and these are a gift to the community. There's no cost to attend. You can attend in person here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we have another remote location down in Knoxville, Tennessee, or you can attend virtually online. So there's close to nearly 1,000 people were attending this last month, which is absolutely amazing. So if you've not yet registered for the next event, go to InitiativeOne.com, and we'd love to have you part of our community. So thank you so much for plugging in, and remember, leadership isn't what you do, it's who you are. Thanks.